friends. Welcome to Story Behind Podcast. This is the show for people who love hearing a good story and who believe the world could use more positivity. We're the team behind GodUpdates and GodTube, and we hope these weekly short stories will brighten your day.
At just 20 and 22 years old, these two sisters from Minnesota saved their family farm. Written by Julie Provost, read by Julie Provost. In Minnesota, two sisters saved their family farm after their father, Perry Altermatt, died in a boating accident. Miranda and her sister, Casey, were only 20 and 22 years old back in 2012 when their grandfather, Mark, asked them if they wanted to farm after the passing of their father. The two sisters first answered their grandfather, "We're going to help." "That ain't what I'm asking you," Mark says. "I know you'll help us take the crop out, but I want to know if you want to farm." The two stepped up and said yes. When they decided to take over the farm, Casey had just completed her bachelor's degree and planned to be a CBA. Miranda was working on her associate's degree in agriculture business. Things took a very different path for the sisters. At the time, they knew something about working on the farm. However, they had never planted corn or driven a combine when their father unexpectedly passed away. But this fourth generation of farmers stepped up to save the family farm. "Wasn't sure if they were up to it, but I am now," says their Uncle Scott Haas, who also drives out from the Twin Cities to help during the harvest season. In 2016, Kara Levin told the story of the young sisters who had just completed their fifth harvest. "If we didn't take it over," Miranda says, "then who would?" The sisters' grandparents, Barb and Mark, spent over 50 years building the farm, and Mark took over from his father. The two had two sons, Perry, Casey and Miranda's father, and Doug, who sadly was killed in a skid loader accident in the 1980s at the age of 23. "I knew that Mark probably wouldn't have lived himself if he would have to say, 'We're going to sell and rent it all out,'" Barb says. But they didn't have to worry about that. Casey and Miranda, two sisters who saved their family farm, stepped up to the plate. Mark, Barb, and the whole family were beyond proud of the girls. "They're learning fast," Mark said back in 2016. Since taking over the farm, the two sisters have had farm weddings and had one child each in 2016. The grandmothers helped watch them when they were out in the fields. "I'm sure we're stronger than we ever thought we could be, and do more than we ever thought we could," Casey says. Today, in 2024, each has grown their family, with Casey Farr and her husband Josh having 4 children, and Miranda Luce and her husband Jeremy having 2, and they're very much in charge of the farm. When their grandfather Mark passed away last year at 85, they knew he had left the farm in good hands. "Tradition," Mark said back in 2016. "When you build something, you want to continue it to be built." And because of the strength and commitment of his granddaughters, his farm will continue for years to come. And what a tremendous blessing that is. So whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do, do all for the glory of God. 1 Corinthians 10:31. Oldest living person in the U.S. passes away at 115 after a long and faithful life. Written by Heather Rickelman. Read by Julie Provost. Elizabeth Francis, the oldest living person in the U.S., passes away at 115 after a long and fruitful life. She left behind a legacy of faith and love. She was known for having a joyful spirit, loving Jesus and the good book, and having deep, boundless love for her family. Elizabeth showed her family and loved ones that aging is a blessing and not a curse. It offers us a journey rich in wisdom, too. She loved the Lord. Her faith was extremely strong. Her 69-year-old granddaughter and caregiver, Ethel Harrison, said. Ethel also said her grandmother was always checking in on others. She would ask how everyone was doing, and she often told her family, friends, and strangers about the golden rule. Treat people like you want to be treated. Born in 1909 in Houston, Texas, Elizabeth witnessed a century of immense change in family dynamics, politics, and even technology. Despite all the changes she's seen in the world, she remained a simple woman who valued faith, kindness, and family. She celebrated her 114th birthday with her family surrounding her, and she told everyone, "I am very, very young. Look at me. I am like a little young chicken." Her words capture the hope and reminder that with faith, everyday life can pass by instantly. I suppose if you viewed life through her eyes, she knew that life was much more than the years we count on earth. When we consider eternity and the promises of Jesus, every earthly lifetime feels like the opening notes of a long and glorious song. For those who place their hope in Him, life here is only a preview of what we get to have in eternity, where age falls away. Elizabeth's family was blessed to have her walk the earth for the last 115 years. She left behind a family that included great-great-great-grandchildren. Each and every one of her family members will carry her legacy of love, faith, and joy. Now that's something worth striving for, don't you think? As we age and move forward with our lives, let Elizabeth be an example of what to live for, a life devoted to glorifying Christ in all that we say and do. Psalm 91:16. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation.
Thank you so much for listening to Story Behind Podcast. We're really glad you joined us for this week's story. To see photos and videos that may have been referenced in this episode, check out the links in the show notes. And if you enjoyed what you heard today, subscribe to our podcast, and please tell a friend about us. We'd also love it if you'd rate us and leave us a review. It really does help more people find us. Story Behind is a Salem Web Network production.